Laurel, a memoir by Laurella Luce Healy, edited by Bonita Healy, illustrated by Gabriella Lee. For Mama and Mother, both now gone. Part 2. The Relatives. It was cold in early 1920 when Sis and I went to visit Uncle Herman and Aunt Hilda on a nearby farm. Uncle Herman was my mama's half-brother, one of 17 children born to my mama's mama, from 1878, when mama's brother Roy was born, to 1902, when mama's mama delivered her last baby girl and died herself. Uncle Herman and Aunt Hilda were childless and enjoyed us. At bath time, Aunt Hilda put 2 chairs together and set a big wash tub filled with warm water on the chairs. We really liked to bath in that cozy kitchen. Then Uncle Herman put 2 more chairs opposite the others and brought out a mattress and put it on the 4 chairs. What a nice bed. We loved them and stayed with them for a long time. They must have bought me a new pair of shoes. I kept them in an unused room, and every time anyone came, I would run in and get my patent leather Mary Jane shoes to show them off. Aunt Hilda said I never walked. I always ran. Maybe my love affair with shoes started with those shiny new shoes from my aunt and uncle. I don't remember ever going back to the Wapaka home with the red wool carpet and comforting fire. I don't remember the day Papa left Aunt Hilda's and Uncle Herman's with Mama in a sleigh. I don't remember Ken and Percy sobbing, chasing the sleigh, with Percy persisting until he collapsed. Uncle Herman had to carry him home for Aunt Hilda to put him to bed. It was the saddest thing I ever saw, Aunt Hilda told me later, much later. Papa had journeyed on and boarded a train headed for a sanitarium in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. En route, the train stopped in a small country town. Carrying Mama wrapped in blankets and warmed by soapstone, Papa was refused a lodging in the only hotel. "I can't have a woman here with TB," the innkeeper explained. Trudging out, Papa found a kind shopkeeper who allowed Mama and Papa to spend the night on the floor in a storeroom for canned goods. Mama died on Ken's 10th birthday, February 3rd, 1920. I remember the day of her funeral in Omro Junction, Wisconsin. It was cold. We sat under a big tent with many, many people. I sat with Aunt Kate, and Cousin Pearl took me up front so I could see Mama in the bed. I didn't know much about death, nor that it was so sad. Everyone was crying. Mama was sleeping. I wondered why her bed had a glass cover on it and why I couldn't kiss her. That summer, Sis and I went to live with Grandpa, Aunt Jane, and Aunt Nellie in their 2-story white clapboard home surrounded by lilacs on Vinland Street in Oshkosh. Grandpa, who was Papa's papa, had survived the Civil War. He spent his days seated near the coal stove in the front room, watching birds and squirrels and passers-by traveling the wooden sidewalk. He smoked a pipe and kept his thoughts to himself. I slept near the coal stove on a settee that was turned to the wall to form a crib of sorts. Aunt Jane was a maiden lady who played the piano, while Aunt Nellie, who was 13 years older than my papa, had been widowed since diphtheria took her young husband sometime around 1895. Papa would come to see us when we lived with Grandpa and the aunts. We played and had so much fun, but Sis did not always like the food, especially the dried peas. She found a little ledge under the edge of the table and quietly hid her peas there. One day Aunt Nellie moved the table, and the peas poured out on the floor. Sis was scolded severely. It seemed as though she got in trouble a lot for someone who was not yet in school. I felt badly for her. I doubt if I ate my peas either. I probably put them in my sweater pocket and threw them out when I went outdoors. I don't know if there is a moral to this, unless it is to always have a pocket. In September, Mabel went to live with Aunt Kate and Uncle Rob in Tripoli, Wisconsin, where she started school. A jolly pair, Aunt Kate played the piano for square dances, and Uncle Rob, a chef on a Great Lakes steamer, fiddled. They were good to her, but Sis wasn't happy because they expected her to dry the dishes. Sandy was nearby with Aunt Myra and Uncle Frank. They had 8 children, so one more didn't matter. Soon Aunt Jane wanted to go visit Aunt Kate and Mabel. One of the men in the church offered to take her in his Model T. He often drove us home from church. It was a long trip to Aunt Kate's, and friends said it would not be proper for Aunt Jane to accept Earl Burdick's offer of transportation. It was decided that I would be their 4-year-old chaperone. During the drive, I promptly fell asleep, with my head on Aunt Jane's lap and my feet in Earl's lap. "Laurel," Aunt Jane called as she woke me, calling me by the name Mama had requested I be called just before she died. My given name, Laurella, was too formal, and my pet name, Baby, unfit for a young lady. I loved Aunt Jane. She was a beautiful, slender lady who many years before had been engaged to a doctor. They broke up because of religious differences. I was glad to see Mabel during our visit in Tripoli. One day I was napping again. The aunts told Mabel to stay with me, and when I woke up, she was to take me where they were picking berries. I woke up, and we started for the berry patch. We'd gone quite a distance when a big, hairy animal appeared in the path. Mabel said for me to stand real still and not to speak. She took my hand, and we were still. The beast walked away. I continued to live on Vinland Street in Oshkosh with Grandpa, Aunt Jane, and Aunt Nellie. I went to the Free Methodist Church with Aunt Jane and Aunt Nellie. The preacher was often long-winded for a little girl. My aunts would put a teaspoon of sugar in a clean handkerchief and tie a string around it. When the preacher started to talk, they would give me this sugar tea to suck. I would go to sleep, and they would enjoy the sermon. I had learned my first recitation for Children's Day. It went, "Little deeds of kindness, little acts of love, make this world of Eden like the heavens above." My aunts had drilled me to really bring out the word Eden, so when I got up to give my piece, I shouted out Eden. Everyone laughed. In my religious training, I had learned my "Now I lay me down to sleep," and the God blesses. I had learned to pray if I needed help or was afraid. It was bedtime, and I was afraid of the dark. My aunts left a small kerosene lamp on the dresser. It was turned low, so I would have a dim light. If the wicks were not trimmed even, these lamps would smoke, and the smoke blackened the chimney. This lamp was smoking. Just a small piece in the chimney was clear. "Dear Lord, please don't let my chimney get all black," I prayed. Through the years, when difficult times have come, I have often prayed, "Dear Lord, please don't let my chimney go black." In the months after my mother's funeral, Aunt Nellie would take me for walks in the park. I could go to Tinkham store by myself. My aunts would give me 3 pennies, and I would buy 3 candy soldiers. I would play with them until they got sticky, and then I would eat them. Real soldiers from World War I were coming home. My mama's brothers came to see me. One of them had a motorcycle with a sidecar. He took me for a long ride in the sidecar. I loved it. I never saw him again. Life was happy with Grandfather and the aunts, but I was probably terribly spoiled. One bright day in late March 1921, my aunts told me I was going home. Home? I thought I was home. Papa came on a cold, crisp morning. He wrapped me in a blanket and tucked me in a sleigh. Telephone lines hummed as we drove along. End of part 2.